This morning I have Kathi Hyde with me. Kathi has recently written a book called Piece by Piece. It's a practical guide to stepping up or starting over in business and in life, which sounds really exciting. So I'm dead excited about talking to her this morning. So first of all, we're going to say hi, good morning, Kathi, and thanks for coming to the studio.
Hello, Sam, and all the listeners. It's lovely to be here.
Brilliant. Um, so first of all, we better start off by finding out a little bit about you, about
Okay.
Kathi.
Okay, so I am the daughter of an RAF pilot, ended up in growing up in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and I qualified as an industrial psychologist, and I've spent the last 30 years helping businesses throughout Africa become profitable and leveraged.
So you've spent a lot of time helping and supporting businesses,
Yes.
um, but then eventually you decided to write a book. Why did you decide to write the book?
Okay, so what happened was I went trekking in the Andes. Just as COVID was starting, I didn't know at the time, and off I went. I went through Peru and down the Amazon and onto the Andes. And really, what I was doing was saying, now that my daughter has graduated, what's the next season of my life? I came to Edinburgh and then got locked down. And so I had to do what most people had to do, which was pivot life, pivot business, flex, and survive. And I realized that I wasn't the only one. Businesses all around me, clients, they were all being affected. And it was, how can I take what I know, put it into some form of accessible stuff so that people can pick it up? And I used the lockdown period to write a book.
Right. So your book is about a practical guide to stepping up or starting over
Yeah.
in business and in life, and it's called Piece by Piece. Where did the title come from?
So it was this whole thing of the fact that when you build a business, it's about you, the owner, in a way that working isn't. It's very much a full contact sport. So you as the owner are one critical part of the business you build. And then the other thing was that business owners need strategy. They need a blueprint. They need, how do I build a business that actually works? Because it's not being taught anywhere. So this best of both. And I used to hear it often from clients. They'd say to me, gosh, I wish my psychologist understood business, because I go to them because I'm stressed and because I'm needing to sort my personal stuff out, but they don't really understand the need to make money at the end of the week. And then I'd have other people say to me, gosh, I wish my business consultant or my business coach had more of a psychology background, because I know what to do, but I'm just not getting round to it. And what's that all about? So I found that this combination of psychology and business gave me a little niche. And so what I did was I wrote a book that spoke to both those halves. So Peace is about getting yourself to the start line, PEACE. And then piece by piece are the puzzle pieces that you need to put into play if you're going to get your business to become profitable and to work.
And I believe that the Piece, PEACE, is an acronym. And what does that stand for?
So, one of the hardest things when you write a book is to find a structure on which to hang enough information to help a reader, but not too much so that you don't overwhelm them. So, it was actually an acronym, and the first, it just sort of spelled out the stepping stones that I went on when I pivoted my business, and then the stepping stones that I've then introduced clients to, so that you can almost have a roadmap through getting yourself to the start line. So the P was for purpose, sort of finding your why. It's a big thing, but it really matters, because if you don't do something that excites your inner cheetah, you'll never see it to the finish line. The second one looked at energy, marshalling resources, which is important when you have a limitation on those. The third one was to look at aspiration, to understand what do you actually want to build, and is that going to have a level of return. The fourth one was connections, because there's a choir out there if you listen to too many people, and there is being blindsided if you don't listen to enough people. So it's about, how do I work those connections so that I can optimize them and hear the right stuff and ignore the rest. And then the last one was to look at your environment. Oftentimes, a change in geography can make all the difference. I mean, I'm now married to a Derbyshire lad, and I live in Croston, and I was born and grew up in Zimbabwe. So, and it all happened because I went trekking in the Andes. So sometimes a change in geography can spark the change that you need, and sometimes where you are isn't going to work. I've had people say to me, "Oh, I started my coffee shop in my neighborhood," and it was like, "Well, do they need a new coffee shop?" No. So then how can you expect your coffee shop to work? Wrong geography. So the E was for environment.
So, and so your book, what is it about your book that makes it stand out from other business help books or guides?
So people who've read it and critics, and there have been a number, basically said a handful of things. They said it's not dry and boring like some business how-to books can be. It's also not fluffy and tree huggy like some here's my story can be. It's a combination of easy read but practical stuff that when done actually yields a result. And that's always the scary thing about it. You write a book saying, here, this will help, and then you go, well, did it actually help? And the only way you're going to know that is if readers say, well, it actually helped. And they've been fantastic. So people who've read it and used it in business, they've had returns. And so thankfully it was useful stuff.
And I suppose at the moment it's a good time to have a book like this, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
we're in 2024,
Yeah.
and business is all around is tough.
Yeah.
So, have you got any sort of tips or what that you would give to people for 2024, maybe from your book or advice?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done a few workshops and I've been around to some of the networking groups locally, and everywhere I'm hearing this, even with people who are making money, is this sort of sense that they're under pressure. And if I can pull out three things that have struck me about talking to small business owners, the first one is don't wing it. We fall into business. We start because we got retrenched. We start because it's post-COVID. We start because we're no longer employed. But we don't invest in business building skills. It's not being taught anywhere. People don't read necessarily about how to run a business or build a business. So they go into it uneducated, unlearned, not necessarily as competent as they could be, and think, well, we'll just wing it. How hard can it be? But the stats are grim. So you'd never take your car to a mechanic who didn't know what he was doing. You'd never go to a dentist who said, oh, well, I just sort of fell into it. So why would we do that with our business? This is our livelihood. So when I started a business, it's like, where's that book that just gives the basics of how to get up and get running, get onto the skis, as it were. And I couldn't find one, so I wrote one. So don't wing it. The second piece of advice or thing that's come out in conversation has been don't wait. People think, oh, well, I'll just wait until the tax season's over, or, until summer comes, or, this hard time will pass. But if businesses aren't going forwards, they're going backwards. They don't stand still. So waiting can sometimes be catastrophic. It can start a slide which is hard to stop. So if you're not making enough money and you don't have a life, there's something wrong with your business and you need to fix it. And the sooner you start, the better. And then I think the last thing that I'd say is I see a lot of waste. When we go into our own business, we don't have a lot of time, we don't have a lot of money, we don't have a lot of bandwidth. And if we pick the wrong problem to solve, or we pick the wrong solution, or we do it wrong, we're going to end up stretching those resources and possibly breaking them. So getting something like a book like this will help you to decide which problem do I need to sort first, what's a symptom and what's a problem. Because if you solve the wrong thing, you're going to waste time, you're going to waste money. And most of us don't have too much of either.
So that was the 3 W's, which were winging it, waiting and waste. And so I think one of the big things that if you're in business, or for all of us, that changed sort of the face of how we are today was the C word, COVID.
Yeah.
So how did that affect business and people's businesses?
So I mean, it was a seismic and global change. I mean, the sort of stats that people are throwing around is 30% of the entrepreneurial market globally collapsed. 1.6 billion people lost their jobs. So it was significant. But the fascinating thing is when I talk to business owners, it's not so much that COVID caused problems, it's more that COVID exposed problems that were already there. And if we look back since 1929, there's been 29 massive big impacts on the marketplace. And the interesting thing about all of those, right from the 1929 crash, was that in each of them, some businesses crashed, some survived, some thrived. And so the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what did those who survived and thrived do that the others didn't? Because the next big thing will come. It's how business rolls. So it's not to be afraid of those, but it's almost to winter-proof or future-proof the business. And that's by building on purpose by design, not winging it.
Back to the W's again.
Back to the W's, yeah.
Back to the W's.
Yeah.
So if people are in business or have a business or thinking of starting up a business, obviously they can go out and get your book.
Yeah.
But you've had your 3 W's. Do you have any other sort of top tips for them?
I think the thing is that the idea of starting a business and the reality of starting a business are 2 different things. And what separates those that do from those that don't is just taking right action right. Because intention is one thing, action is another. Wrong action is going to get you down the wrong path. So I would say to people who are thinking of doing a business, thinking of restarting a business, wanting to step up their business, take right action right.
So, and if people do want to grab a copy of your book, how do they go about doing that?
So Amazon's got it. And if you don't like reading, which many entrepreneurs don't like, Audible, and I'll read it to you. Otherwise, they can get hold of you and pick up one of the complimentary copies I've left behind. Or they can come along to one of my workshops. So I've been bullied into doing a couple of sales training courses because a lot of people say that they struggle with closing the sale. They struggle with turning leads into customers. They struggle with new business. So they can follow me on my website, buildingbestbusiness.com, or on my Facebook page. We'll be advertising a couple of those seminars, and they are literally open to any business owner who'd like to come. The next one is going to be on the 2nd of May down in Liverpool at Strawberry Fields.
Brilliant. It sounds really interesting. And I know off air we were talking briefly about email and other things like that. So I think going to one of your seminars might be really, really interesting and good for anybody's business.
Well, I've been described as entertaining, accessible, and substantial. And I hope by that last one they were talking about the content, not my figure. Yeah, but I mean, the whole point is to how can I be as useful as possible so that people can walk out of there armed to do things differently and get a different result. That's basically it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure.